The rise of AI.
If you've asked Alexa, Siri, or Google Assistant for something, you've used artificial intelligence already. But OpenAI's ChatGPT has taken things to a new level, though even that AI is still narrow. AutoGPT can, in some circumstances, take ChatGPT to a new level and execute machine-based tasks for you. But we're not at a point where an AI-powered device or machine can think abstractly to solve things, at least not yet. And some of the minds behind the current versions of AI we have are worried we're not that far off.
The fact that we don't know how much time we have left is itself not a good sign that we have any idea what we're doing. And we would start capping things now.
AI researcher Eliezer Yudkowsky says we should stop trying to make AI better and smarter.
GPT-4 is pretty interesting. We just capped it out at GPT-4. We could get a whole lot of interesting stuff out of that. We could maybe make an exception for medical research type AIs like AlphaFold that don't have the same kind of general thinking ability as GPT-4 and are nonetheless capable of doing very useful stuff and and then not push those too far either.
He says even if we don't have international agreements in place, even with our adversaries on AI use, it still needs to be regulated. A new Fox News poll finds just about half of us are familiar with new AI technology like GPT, and those who are familiar with it are slightly more likely to say it's a good thing rather than a bad thing. But either way, an overwhelming number of poll respondents want regulations on AI, and most of us don't think government is up to the task. Now, a White House official has confirmed to Fox News the vice president is meeting tomorrow with the heads of Alphabet, Anthropic, OpenAI, and Microsoft to discuss ethical AI innovation.
There are still things that we can do.
Tristan Harris is co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology and a former Google ethicist.
Did we completely contain nuclear weapons? No, there have been several that have run loose, but we did collectively limit it to 9 countries. We did create the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. And those things with regard to nuclear technology, I think, are important because they point to, you could have been sitting here in 1945 and you could have had Oppenheimer and Richard Feynman and Enrico Fermi and some of the atomic scientists saying, we regret the creation that we made with the atomic bomb. And we don't see a way this is going to end well. And some of the nuclear scientists committed suicide believing that they wouldn't be able to contain it. And yet we are here. We're still here right now. But we're not here because of just fortune and luck, although there is some of that. We're also here because a lot of people worked really hard to figure out how do we deal with this new kind of power? Can we steward this power without destroying ourselves? And I think what you're finding, and there's this big letter that came out, a month ago, the pause letter for AI. And, some people, they anchored that to Elon Musk because he was one of the signatories, although he joined later in that process. Important to note about that letter is it's the founders of the field of artificial intelligence. Jeffrey Hinton just left Google, as you said, who's kind of one of the fathers of neural networks, but Yoshua Bengio, who's one of the fathers of deep learning, and Stuart Russell, who wrote the textbook on artificial intelligence. These people all signed this letter because they say that there are major existential risks here. And if there's that many credible people who literally created this field, I think it's very important that we have a very clear-eyed debate and discussion, really, about what is of existential risk here. And if it is a suicide race, and no one wants that. Literally, no one wants everyone to just disappear from getting this wrong. If that's not what we want, how do we coordinate?
When you see the race among the tech companies, right, and you hear about also some of the tech world's layoffs, Microsoft let go, an entire ethics team, maybe not everybody in ethics, but certainly quite a few people.
Yep.
As we talk and we put the burden on Congress when it comes to regulations, what burden should be on that the tech companies? You just referenced several people in the tech world who are calling for a stop. But when you look at the companies that are sort of pushing this and racing against each other, what is the burden in your mind on them?
Well, I think a lot of people inside the companies feel trapped because, as you said, there's now a market race to release, right? And when OpenAI and Sam Altman, fired the starting gun and said, we are going to ship this as part of ChatGPT and ship it to the world. And it's important for listeners to know that it took 4.5 years for Facebook to reach 100 million users. It took TikTok 9 months to reach 100 million users. It took ChatGPT less than 2 months to reach 100 million users. So the rate in which we are deploying this technology is faster than anything of this kind of consequence. And moreover, we're not just sort of putting up a website and saying, here's this blinking cursor of this AI you can talk to. OpenAI, for example, has created an API, a platform that basically developers can include ChatGPT directly into all of their products. And they're not testing this, right? And this isn't because they're evil CEOs or bad people. It's because the speed at which the clock rate of this industry has been set by market forces, and specifically by a handful of decisions about a year ago that said, hey, we're going to start releasing this stuff to the public. It's important to note that Google and DeepMind, for example, have very sophisticated advanced AI capabilities that they have been holding back because they don't feel like they're safe or ready for society to have yet. And that was a wise thing to do. That's the world that we should be living in. And I think what's happened is that now the companies are caught in this race that really was sort of accelerated by OpenAI's, I think really, one can say reckless, decision to release this stuff as fast as possible. Now they'll push back on that and say, we had GPT-4, for example, that we were testing for safety for more than 8 months. And we should celebrate that they did that. And that's the negative space that we can't see, is everybody who is holding back their capabilities. But overall, now that it's released, now that it's out there, we are seeing all the gloves come off, and all the companies are now racing to push this out there as fast as possible. So now when I talk to people who are inside the companies, they don't want that. In fact, they feel deeply uncomfortable that we cannot at this pace get this right. And this is why Jeff Hinton, kind of one of the godfathers of AI who just left Google, left, as he said, it's not about what the capabilities are right now, it's the speed and the exponential curve at which these things are going.
I want to ask you about regulation. If we're looking to the government to do this, and the stakes are different, right? And they haven't been able to come up with regulations on social media, as you know, You've seen all the hearings, right?
That's right.
Are the stakes different enough that this time is different and the pressure is different? And if China doesn't agree to the same set of regulations, or any adversary doesn't agree to the same set of regulations, how do we regulate our own use of AI to still remain competitive?
So these are some great questions. There's a few that you just laid out here, so I want to take them kind of one by one. One is around, as you said, we have not regulated social media. We're now 10 years into the crisis around how it's warped our politics and broken mental health and shortened attention spans and not been healthy for our democracy. And yet we haven't done anything. Now, why haven't we done something? We waited until social media became irrevocably entangled with our society. And once it became entangled, think about how hard it is to ban TikTok, this is an easy choice. This is a Chinese Communist Party influenced company who's basically running the telecommunications infrastructure and Saturday morning cartoons of its number one geopolitical adversary. It would be like letting the Soviet Union run television programming for the US during the Cold War. And so one of the things that is different, to your point, with AI is that it is not yet entangled. And this is actually why we raced to create this presentation called the AI Dilemma that I do recommend for as many of your listeners who are capable of watching it. Just Google for AI Dilemma. We really put it together in a way to say, look, we're at the moment before entanglement. Not everything in our society is entangled with these new artificial general intelligence, OpenAI, ChatGPT type language models. It's not embedded in everything yet. And if we're going to regulate it, we have to do it now, not after. One thing to note is that the people who built AGI, these artificial general intelligence companies like DeepMind, OpenAI, and Google, the people who started these companies, they have been aware of the existential risks of AI since the very beginning. Unlike social media, where Mark Zuckerberg didn't say, now, if we build this might ruin society and democracy. He didn't have that thought. But literally every single one of the AI company CEOs have known about the fact that there are existential risks for humanity since the beginning. Now, let's be honest, China is racing to AGI as fast as possible. They have said that. They do not view the US in cooperative terms in terms of AI. I think that's a mistake for both parties. The US is similarly racing to AGI as fast as possible. But the question is, if you're racing to a technology that you and the people who build it don't believe you can control, as I mentioned in this AI Dilemma presentation, there's a survey of about 700 AI researchers. That was the largest survey that we know that's been done to date on this, asking people, what is the chance that humanity goes extinct or similarly disempowered from our inability to control AI? And 50% of the researchers, half of the researchers, said there's a 10% or greater chance that we go extinct from our inability to control AI. Now, that's be like getting on a plane where 50% of the people who made that 737 you're about to board say, there's a 10% chance that our inability to control this plane means that it goes down. So that's a number that we should have a democratic conversation, say we shouldn't onboard humanity onto that plane. Now, that doesn't mean that China's plane is safer either, by the way, right? It's not like their plane is also magically a lot safer. this is a fundamentally uncontrollable technology of large language models. I won't go into the details, but we're better off cooperating to get to something than we are competing. Now, I know that might sound incredibly naive to anybody, especially with a national security background. And believe me, we actually talk to people in national security and take those concerns incredibly seriously. But I think we have to be incredibly clear-eyed about the risks here. Because, if I was China, I would see the United States racing to AGI right now and deploying it everywhere as actually unsafe for the entire world. Because it's not about the race to, get plutonium. It's about the race to harness plutonium in a safe way and not have loose fissile material that anybody can build weapons with. And right now we're releasing AI in a way, in the US at least, that is racing to deploy plutonium to everybody as fast as possible, but not actually having the safety controls. And I think that the race isn't to get to AGI, the race is to harness AI safely. And we should both countries really agree on that.
Just a couple more for you. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy set up some panels for lawmakers of both parties, as you know, with 2 AI experts from MIT. That seems on its face like a pretty good idea, right? If you're going to regulate this thing and you're going to have the conversation, you should probably hear from some real experts, some real computer scientists. What else would you tell lawmakers to do or read or watch other than, the AI dilemma of your own production?
Well, I think it's great that Kevin McCarthy convened, these AI tech leaders to brief lawmakers. What I worry about is who's in the room. I worry about just because you have a computer science background or a technical background or an AI background does not mean you understand the interaction effects with society. I found this with social media, right? I had, I met some of the smartest people I'd ever met in the world at Google and at Facebook and at these, YouTube, at these companies building these advanced systems. And I think there's a bias that when you meet really smart people, that they're therefore going to know on the engineering side, that they're going to know suddenly how it's going to affect teenagers 10 years from now. Just because you understand the technology doesn't mean you understand the interaction effects with society. It's not intrinsic to social media that it would unravel society and democracy. It was that the incentives and the race that it was designed against, which is to get maximum engagement, to get attention, which means shorter bite-sized forms of attention, more extreme, political takes, cynical views on everything go more viral than good faith interpretations of what people are doing. And that was enough to unravel society. And that had to do with social, psychological effects of a technology and society. And what I want for lawmakers is to be briefed by people who are really focusing on the interaction effects with society and the ways that it can cause existential risks. And I worry that this is happening too fast for our institutions to deal with. And we have a very short time window if you think about how fast this field moves compared to other fields.
Tristan Harris, Center for Humane Technology, thank you so much for joining us.
So good to be here with you. Thank you so much.